Hello. Hi, I'm Opal Mitchell. I work at the Nixon Library in Jacksonville, but I work for the Central Arkansas Library System. And this is the Crafting with Opal program that I do on Thursday nights at 7. Tonight I will be showing you how to make a mini messenger bag. The pattern that I have for it, I got off the internet, and after I made it, I wanted to make some changes in it. So if I gave you a pattern for this particular project, be sure to follow along with the way that I do it in this program tonight, because I'm going to just tweak it just a little bit because of the way the straps are done in the pattern. It was hard to, here, I'll show you the one that, this is the one where I actually followed the pattern, and the straps kind of bothered me because they were these big wide straps, and they didn't come out the sides, so I had to do a weird little fold and sew them down so that they would come out on the sides. So I figured I could just tweak it a little bit where this will be like maybe half the size, only about an inch wide instead of 2 inches wide. I think that'll help a great deal. I might even try to make a little tweak to how this one is got rounded edges. I think I'm going to try to tweak it a little bit where it's got boxed corners instead. I don't think that would be too hard to do, but I might change my mind while we're doing it if it looks like it's not going to work out. But anyway, that's what we're going to be doing tonight. And if you stay until the very end, I will be doing a giveaway. This will be the last gift card that I'll be giving away. Hold on. Let's see. My dog wanted it in my lap. I think the one I have left is the Michael's gift card for $15. So if you stay to the very end of the program, I'll get the names of everybody that's watching, and then I'll do a drawing. Next week I'll also do a drawing, but that one will be a painting class, and I'll be giving away an apron that's got the Summer Reading Club logo on it. So I guess, oh, Susie's watching. Hey Susie, she won the gift card last week. Yay! Oh, let me look and see if my comments are going to show up. Let's see here real quick. Is it going to let me type? Hello. Hi Susie, hey! Sometimes those comments don't like to show up on here, so I have to do a comment in order to get the comments to show up. And this is Zoe. She likes to come and bug me whenever I'm doing my programs. I'll have to go put her in her bed here in just a second whenever I get started. But yeah, we're going to do a mini messenger bag tonight. I think some people were going to watch this later that had gotten supplies for it because they weren't able to watch it while I do it. But I told them that's fine, because it's kind of hard to sometimes follow along and do it with someone whenever they're doing it live. So yeah, feel free to do that and watch it over and over again, because I know whenever I'm watching any crafting videos, I can't real-time follow along and actually make the project with them either. It's a little too difficult for me to do that. So let me put this little dog in her bed and get her out of my way so I can show y'all how to make that bag. Alright, so put her up. And then I'm going to move, I've got some fabric I had laying on her bed, so I'm going to put it there. And, yep, this is not working real well. Okay, I'm going to switch around so we can turn it around to where I'm going to be actually working on the fabric. I chose, this was just some fabric that I had at work. I bought it previously to make, I forget what I made with it for think it was a relative. I think I made something with this, so I had a lot of it left over. But this is what I'm going to do the messenger bag with. If you're working with pattern fabric like this one, you want to pay attention to what direction it goes. This one luckily goes in all directions, so it's not going to make a huge difference on how you cut it out. Now if it's directional and you're making a bag like this one, here's the bag again, then this one I used earlier, it was all directions too, so it didn't really matter. But if it's a directional fabric and it only goes one way, you definitely want to pay really close attention to the way you cut out your fabric and make sure that it's going to be going down instead of up, and then also make sure the back side is going to be the same way, because that would be pretty frustrating to get it cut out and then have it cut out wrong and it not work out. So yeah, really pay attention if you're working with directional fabric when it comes to making stuff. So that we're not going to have to worry about. I'm going to do the straps first. The pattern recommends to cut them out, I'm trying to think how many, 38 inches long for the strap. Now that's going to make a big difference on you as a person, on how far down you want your bag to hang on you. This bag, I'm pretty tall, and that strap would, if I wanted to wear it as a cross the body bag, that strap's way too short for me to wear it across my body. I could probably barely get that over my shoulder and be comfortable. So you may want to tweak the pattern to make it long enough to go across your body. And if you do that, then you definitely need to do some measuring ahead of time. And that's when it's good to have a tape measure like this. That way you can wrap it over your shoulder and measure how long you want it to be, or, to go around your body. Now once you get it measured to the height that you want it to, where you want it to hang on your body, add a good 4 inches to it. That way you'll have a little bit to play with, because you're going to end up losing some of those inches whenever you're sewing it up and putting it in the bag. And you can kind of retest it once, because you're going to be cutting out all the pieces first, and if they're a little long, it won't matter. We'll be putting like all the pieces together without sewing it together at one point, and that would be kind of a great time to kind of throw it around your shoulder and see where it was going to hang on you, and see what length would be the best to do the straps. So that's just a tip on figuring out what kind of straps you want to have. I think, because these are going to be giveaway projects that we're going to give away, and I'll show you again what I meant by the straps. I sewed them down in a triangle shapes just so this fold could fold over it, because those straps are just way too big the way the pattern told you to make it. The one I'm not going to have a solid on one side and the pattern on the other. It's just going to be all pattern, and mine is going to be half that. It's only going to be that wide. We're going to cut straps out that are 4 inches wide, and then I think I'm going to start with probably, I'm going to try to do at least 40 inches long or longer, because this just really, I'm going to put it around me. Yeah, this barely goes, yeah, I guess it just depends. I'm going to show you real quick. It just really depends on how you want it to fall on you. I'm going to show you real quick how this one looks on me, if I can step away and show it. See, oops, my other dog's in the way. See, this one, it's about the 38 inches, and it goes to about my waist. So if that's how long you want it to be, then that would be fine to do about 38, 40 inches. But if you want it to be crossing over your body like this, then you need to think about, how much longer you need to make that strap. See, that's very uncomfortable pulling that off. So we would definitely want to measure and make it. I guess I'll do that just so I can show y'all real quick. this would only work on me, of course, because everyone is different. So say I wanted it to go over my body like that, and I wanted it to hang down to here, then I would look, that measures 46 inches. So once we start sewing, I know I'm going to lose some of that. Definitely, I'm going to just add at least 2 inches. That way, because I know I shouldn't lose more than that, because we're not going to fold the straps any. And since I measured it, that should be, so 48 inches would be for me on that one. So I'm going to go ahead and go with that, because that fell about at my waist. Some people may want it to fall below their waist, so it just depends. It's very flexible as far as how long you want the strap to be, and that's true with any project you do. If it's something like that you're going to have as a purse or a bag, you can always change the length of the straps depending on how you're going to carry the bag. So, and that's usually pretty easy to make that adjustment. So, let's switch back over. Alright, and with me, I'm going to, let's see here. Oh, no. I'm going to cut my straps out first, and this right here is 24 inches long, and I said it was 46, 48, I need to write that down. So I wanted mine to be, I needed to make it 48 inches long, so I'm writing that down. That would make, yeah, 2 of these would be 48 inches long. If I cut out straps that were as long as this 2 times. So I'm going to cut all the way down my fabric, which is longer than that. And you first got to straighten it up first. And I'm going to back this up, because I want to be able to get in here and you be able to see what I'm doing too, without too much trouble. And I always don't know how Facebook does things. Make sure that's pretty centered. And you also want to pay attention to the pattern. If it's got straight lines in it, I'm going to line this up and look and see. And they are really, really good lines. So this is pretty straight. So I just want to straighten out my edge. I'm going to cut off my edge here to get it straight. And this looks like the first line. Well, there's a line up here, so I can lose the least amount of fabric possible. And I'm just going to straighten out my edge first. I guess it would help if I extended the blade on that. No, of course I didn't. I think it's because I'm at an angle here. If you're standing right in front of your rotary, your fabric, and when you're using your rotary cutter, it does a lot better than when you do it at an angle. So what I'm doing is, of course, more difficult. It would cut so much better if I was standing right in front of it instead of to the side. Alright, so we want to get a nice long straight edge with this, so I'm going to, wish I had a little more room to do this. Normally I'm just doing this for the video to be able to show you what I'm doing. Normally I probably wouldn't cut it this way. I would probably do it a little bit different to be more room and easier for me. Okay, so I'm not going to throw that away because my trash can's way over there. Alright, so I've got my straight edge, and now I'm going to cut, I'm going to move that little bag over there. I need 4 inches. And now that I've got a straight edge, I can use the edge of, or the, this thing, oh, what do they call it? It's a quilter's board, I think. It's probably not exactly the right name for it, but quilters use this. And this has got a nice, this keeps my edge nice and straight. Oh, I can't see the bottom though. Well, luckily the fabric has lines in it, so maybe this will help me. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want this straps to be 4 inches wide, so I have no edge lined. Okay, I'm going to use the lines on my fabric to keep this straight, since I know that they're straight. So I'm looking up here to see that my lines are lined up, and when I'm going down here, let's see, I can see it's like over a little bit. So we want that line to shift just a little bit, because yeah, that was not straight. Okay. You definitely want to do a good job of lining up all of your, that's not, trying to see through it, so all these colors and stuff are messing with me. Okay. I'm kind of using, there's a particular picture here, this orange one. I'm trying to make sure that my line is lined up with that, because I'm looking at the top here, and there's a dotted line, one of the measurement ones, and I'm trying to make sure that that same dotted line is lined up all the way down. And you can't always do this with all patterns. And I'm thinking this one's not totally straight, because it's, even though it's lined up on some of them, it's not lined up on all of them. So this must not be straight. Okay, so I want my straps to be straight. So since I can't rely on the lines of the fabric being completely straight like I thought it was, I'm going to have to actually do it a different way. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to draw on my fabric to make sure that I'm getting it straight. I thought I could cheat and do it that way, but it's not working. Well, wait a second. I can do it long ways with the rotary cutter. If I do it this way, I can see my measurements on both ends. Well, okay. We're going to make this work. Normally, if you don't have these tools, what you would do is you would get, you could even work with, here, a yardstick works just as well, because it goes all the way across. So if you don't have these, this has got a straight edge to it too. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 10, and 1, 2, 3, 4, the 13. 13 on that end and the 10 on this end. So I wouldn't use a rotary cutter on a yardstick, so I'm going to have to use a marker for that. And that's why I flip my fabric over, because you can't see these if you draw on the right side of the fabric generally. So I'm going to mark that off, and then I'll just cut it. Actually, I could probably use my rotary cutter. I'll be able to line it up better once I've got it marked. It's so much faster cutting it with a rotary cutter than scissors. Okay. And I'm going to have to cut out 2 of these to get it as long as I want it. Okay, I need to move that over there. I thought this was going to be helpful, but it's not. Alright, so now I can swap it back this way. And let Let me make sure that y'all can see what I'm doing. And I got my blue line here. So I'm going to line this up with my blue line so I'll know for sure that I'm getting a straight cut there. Trying to make sure I can still see it. Okay. Alright. Nope. There's that. I should have extended my table to be a little bit bigger. Alright. I'm going to line that up the rest of the way. There we go. So there's one of my straps, and I'll show you how to put them together too. So I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this and move it around and draw my line again, because you want to make sure that you've got a straight cut. Alright, so I know the edge of my fabric is straight, so I'm going to line it up with this line here. Alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4. I didn't put it exactly same spot I did last time. So 12. 11 mark there. Just a little bit there. And where I put these straps together at, it's not going to be real noticeable. Even because this pattern is so, I guess you would call kind of busy. It's not going to really be that noticeable where I put them together. If it was going to be noticeable, then I would, when I'm putting the straps together, I would want to match up the design with it. But I'm not concerned about that with this, because I really don't think it'll be something that you can easily see. Let's see, I'm looking at my camera to make sure everything's still centered so y'all can see. If I don't get everything completely centered, sometimes when I go to watch it on Facebook later, I'll see part of it cut off. Because of, I guess it's some settings that they have on the recording the Facebook Live stuff. I'm not real sure, but it's weird. I can see a lot bigger screen on mine, but then whenever I'm watching it back, it's the sides of the video is cut off. So I don't know what they... I wish it viewed exactly the way it was recording, but so forgive me if I go off camera and don't realize it, and I don't have this completely, if it's not completely centered, because it's extremely difficult to tell when you're recording how it looks. Okay, where is that? There it is. Alright, so there I've got my straps. So I'm going to put those over there. The next thing that we're going to be doing is the, put a few things up out of the way. Actually, no, I guess I'll leave that. We're going to be doing the bag. So now, I want to do my pattern. So here's my pattern for, this is the front of the bag, and then there's a piece that you tape together that ends up being the back, and it's the flap that goes over it. And you fold your fabric in half to get that measurement. Let's see. Hey Marion, I guess you started watching a little bit ago and I didn't notice. But hey, how are you doing? It's hard to see whenever people are watching. Okay. And I'm going to just test this real quick and see. Yeah, that's going to be perfect. I don't want to work with this big piece of fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold this in half, because that's the way I'm going to cut out my pattern anyway. Because you're going to cut, this is the edge that's supposed to be on your folded edge. So I just want to make sure I have enough fabric for that. And then I'm just going to cut this off. So I'll be dealing with a much, fewer fabric when I'm cutting out the pattern. So I'm just going to get my scissors. Alright. There's a dog bed in the floor I had to move. It had gotten in the way. Almost tripped over it. That's one thing about my dogs. They like to be in here with me when I'm doing stuff. Luckily, one of them decided to go to the front room and hang out with my husband. So she's not in here bugging me right now, but she will probably come later because she's likes to come and bug me. Alright, so there's that, and that's the exterior fabric. For the interior, I'm going to go with red. So I'm going to do the same thing when figuring out what I need here. This one's been cut several times for other projects, so I'm going to see the best way. Here's my patterns to save. I might get this one from here because that's a nice little, I don't know, I do want to start on this end. It might be better to go on this end. I like to get the most out of my fabric. So this piece right here, well, I'll only need about that much for it. And then this one, I'll be able to do the same thing down here. So I'm going to, and let me make sure, okay good, it's not the shelvage. So I'm just going to cut this out quickly. That'll be for that. And then, I wonder, hey, I'll do that. And then this one likes to collect a lot of strings on it for some reason. Okay. So I'm going to move that just a tiny bit more. Get the most out of it. Because I'm going to iron the fabric flat before I start cutting out my pattern. Okay, let's get this out of the way. There we go. So now, this is the other one. So I'm going to iron these fabrics down with a crease in it, and actually this one, since I'm going to have to draw the pattern on there, it's better to do it from the wrong side. And this one's got shelvage on it, so we want to avoid using that as part of our patterns, which I think I gave it plenty of, yeah. I gave it plenty of room so we won't have to worry about cutting any of that. So I'm going to get my iron so we can iron that. And then we can draw our pattern. I guess I put up my blue marker. I'm going to need that to draw my pattern on those. And we could probably cut both of them out at the same time. because there's no sense in cutting things twice when you could put them together and cut them at the same size, and that way you make them, you're sure to get them the same size too. So just to make this easier, I'm going to just have a nice line down the middle here, so it'll be sitting real flat whenever I pin down my fabric to and I think my iron, it's not making noise, so it must be heating back up again. So it wasn't heated up, it was sleeping on me. And we're going to also, there's little fuzzy stuff on there. We're also going to fold the straps too and do them. We'll actually sew them first before we sew the main portion of the bag. Okay, so there's that. Oh, it's got all kinds of things in this fabric. And I'm going to change this pattern that we're doing just a tiny bit. I said this at the beginning of the video, but I'm going to, for those of you that weren't here, I'm going to give the bags boxed corners instead of rounded corners. I didn't burn it, it just it steamed, and that little will disappear. It didn't actually mess it up. Sometimes the fabric will do that. Okay, so I got those flattened out. And then, like I said, if you want to cut them all out at the same time, I'm just going to lay them together. I guess I'll do the big one first. And I'm going to draw on this piece. So I'm going to do the big piece first. I'm going to make sure that I did everything. Yeah, that's going to be plenty of room for that one. I'm just going to move that out of the way. Actually, I'm going to move this down because I want to only use what I need of this fabric and make sure so I'm going to draw that on there. And to have a box corner, see, this is the flap at the top. I'm trying to make sure this is on camera. Let me look and see. Nope, that's kind of off camera. I think this. Actually, I'll just turn it this way so y'all can see. This is going to be the bottom of the bag here, so I want it to have a actual boxed corner, so I'm going to use this to, let's see, I'm really close to the edge of that. I'm going to have to move that up again. And I'm going to make sure my pattern, yeah, I've got it. You want at least a ½ inch or so from the edge there. So I want my flap to be rounded, but I want the bottom of my bag to have a corner to it. So I'm going to actually use this, line up this edge here with my, I'm going to line this edge up with this. That'll help me. So I want there to be a rounded edge there. So, alright. Not a rounded edge. Take that back. So when I draw this one, I'm going to actually give it a corner. This will help me keep my line straight. But then I do want to follow the rounded corner on the pattern up here. So I'm going to go ahead and follow that. And really, more than I think about it, this other piece is really the same size as this down here. Yeah, I could almost use that for the, but I need the edge on there. Alright, so there's our pattern for the bottom piece. I'm going to go ahead and pin it together so when I cut it, it won't shift on me. And I'm going to pin it where my pins don't go past the line there, because it'll be in the way when you're cutting, if it does. And this will really help with making, oops, I didn't get far enough away from the corner, to make sure that they both end up the same size by cutting them together. But if you have too much trouble doing it this way, there's no reason why. When I made the first one, I cut them separate. I wasn't thinking about trying to cut down on steps at the time, so I ended up doing it twice, so it took me longer. It doesn't take a whole lot longer. I'm just going to pin this edge just to kind of hold it all together. Alright, so now I'm just going to cut and follow my line there. Once we've got everything cut out, then we can start sewing. And this was a pattern I found online. I forget what website. It might be on the pattern that I printed out or the directions that I printed out for everyone that got supplies for this program. Okay, so there's that. And oops, make sure my fabric, I usually lay it flat to make sure everything's going to cut straight. But I'm trying to hold it where y'all can see it, so kind of didn't. And I'm going to hang on to a little bit of that scrap in case I need it later. Because you always want to make sure your sewing machine is set for the right tension and everything before you start sewing. So there's my two pieces. They're not going to get sewn together, so I'm going to unpin them. I'm just cutting them out. And then I'll put it back on the iron and flatten them out. So there's the outside piece, and then if I could pull, and there's my inside piece. And it's more apparent what's the top and what's the bottom, since I ended up giving it the boxed, or corners that are going to end up being a boxed corner. Okay, so here's the rest of it that we're going to be working on. Move that stuff out of the way. So here's, well, I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to do the fold. And that's my fold. And then I'm going to line this up with the fold. And then I'm going to draw that, but then this is the bottom, so I want to have that boxed corner. So we're going to use this again. That's moving on me. So I'm going to line this up with the pattern. Keeps it shifting. Okay. So I want to make sure it's straight. So I'm trying to line this up. Let's see. Let's some lines here. Nope, that's not straight. That's straight. Okay, so I need to come back this way. And I'm just making sure all of these lines on this thing behind it is also lined up, because I wasn't sure how accurate the pattern was, if it was real straight or not, but it looks to be. So now I'm going to draw the corner on this one up to there, and then I won't need it anymore. And I just need to do the top part here. Alright, so there's that pattern. And I'm just going to pin this fabric together too, to make sure it doesn't move when I cut it. And I do this a lot, I think, whenever I'm trying to teach something at the library when we were having people in the building. I would show them, if you were doing a pattern like this, that you're doing an inside piece and an outside piece, that you can always, if you do a good job of flattening them out together, then you can generally only have to cut it that one piece one time instead of having to cut it several times. Hey Linda, I see that she's watching. How are you doing? Alright, so now we're going to cut this piece out. Has a little more trouble cutting through that many pieces of fabric, but some good fabric scissors are going to generally do the job. It's just at the very, very ends when you're cutting that sometimes that's where it was kind of having problems there. Okay. And we'll be putting all this together pretty soon. Alright, so there's all those pieces, and I think we're done cutting, mostly. There'll be a little bit of cutting later whenever we do the work on the box corners again, when we're actually boxing them. We'll sew it and then cut off the tips. Okay, so I'm going to need the iron again to flatten those out. I'm going to get that out of the way. Get that out of the way. Don't need those. We're going to be... Okay. So... want to get that crease out of those because we don't want a crease in it anymore. And my iron has been asleep. Oh wait, nope, it woke back up pretty quick. So I'm going to get the crease out of that one. Crease out of that one. Because you want the fabric to lay as flat as possible whenever you're sewing it too. So I don't want that crease in there anymore. It still kind of shows, so I'm going to try this side. Alright. And I'm not going to put these pieces together just yet because we're going to do the straps first. Okay, so those are done. So now I'm going to grab my straps. Actually, with the straps, I'm going to be putting them together, so I guess I'm going to have to sew them before I can do that. This one, I'm not going to be able to match it up, so I'm not going to try. So whenever you're sewing these, oh, I don't want to sew that end. Let's see. That's that end on that one too. I want a straight edge. Oops. Now when you're sewing your straps together, you need to have the right sides facing each other. And actually, I don't need this anymore because I'm going to be lining these up. To make sure that you line these up correctly, I will need something that has a straight edge to it. And I might even have to, since those have, they were cut with some pinking shears, and so they don't have a straight edge on them. Let's see if you can see. So that's going to be hard to line them up, so I'm going to straighten, or actually, I'm going to cut the ends off on these. These will be easier. Because you don't want to sew the that part. The shelvage you don't want that. So I'm going to line that up and just give it a nice clean cut. Let's see. Is that? So I'm going to line that up here. Oops, I had closed it again. Alright, so that gave that a nice edge to it. And then I'm going to be using this again to measure to make sure that I'm going to get them sewn together correctly, because I'm going to mark them. Alright. You want to make sure you get straight lines with all of this stuff, because especially when putting fabric together, if you don't have the straight lines on it, then it's going to be really difficult to put it together correctly. Okay. So now I can show you how to put it together. Right sides facing each other. And I'm going to line them up on this board here. Let's see. See this line? Diagonal line? Let's see. I'm going to get y'all a little bit closer so you can see what I'm doing here. I want this diagonal line to go diagonal through my fabric here. So I'm going to line this one up first. And then I'm going to lay this one on top of it. This just helps. You can do this without one of these, but it just helps you eyeball it better to make sure it's nice and straight. You can keep all of your lines all lined up. And then I can line this up with that diagonal line, and then that way I can mark it. So when I'm sewing it, I know that I'm sewing exactly at a diagonal, and the correct diagonal, because I can mess up doing this part if I'm not real careful. And I'm going to also pin that. Forgot there was going to be extra steps involved, especially since I was doing it this way. Okay, so I'm just going to pin it on either side of that line, just to hold it in place while I'm sewing it. So I'm going to sew down this line on the sewing machine, and then we'll have the straps put together, and then we'll have to then iron the straps, and then sew them again, because we're only sewing them together right now. Let's see. Oops, I was trying to. Well, I keep missing. There we go. trying to throw my pen away and wasn't doing a good job of it. So I'm moving that over here. Alright. Alright. Let's get scooted over here where we can see the sewing machine. Alright. Well, that's gonna hit my sewing machine. I don't want it to hit it. Alright. So let me scoot in here. And I have mine loaded up with black thread. And so if you can see the blue line that I drew on there. Now this right here, you want to get it lined up and be able to see that blue line. That's going to be the hardest thing, and I'm going to move it forward a couple of stitches before I reverse it. Alright, so there we go. I don't think y'all can see real good, so I'm going to make sure. It's so hard to make sure this is centered. Okay, because it doesn't look centered to me, but I have to look on the camera to see. Alright, so you just want to keep that line. Oh, I'm not quite on my line. Ugh. Okay, this may not turn out real good because I didn't do a good job of keeping it lined up with my blue line. Maybe I did okay. I have my needle in a different position than I normally do. I usually have my needle in the center, not all the way to the edge. And so that's a little awkward for me. I guess whatever I sewed the last time, it was easier to have it all the way to the edge. Okay, so now we've got that sewn. We're going to see how good of a job I did. Might not have done so hot. We'll see. Alright, so I'm going to take my pins out. If you don't do a really good job on this part, then the fabric doesn't line up. Okay, so, hey! Actually, sort of, because, yeah, I mean, it's not off to a great, it's off a little bit over here, and just a tiny bit there, but it's almost exact, so I'm happy with it. That'll work. So let me cut off my pieces of thread here, because I don't want those getting in the way whenever we're doing the other part. I surprised myself. I've been working with making bias tape more here lately, so that helps. Bias tape is hard for me to do, and that's one of the things I think you really have to practice at, or I have to get good at it. So, alright, so let's do the fun ironing part. I'm going to try to let you see. Oof. I'm going to first cut that off, that little triangle, so you don't want it too bulky. But I'm also going to iron that piece open to make it easier. I want y'all to be able to see this. So not only am I going to iron it from the front side, but I'm also going to iron it from the back side. So I'm going to start here. You want to press this open, this seam right here. It's hard to get with my fingers because I think I cut it kind of short. But I'm going to use my fingers to kind of press it open, get it started, and then I'll use my iron to actually press it, do a good job of pressing it. Okay. Sometimes you can press it with your fingers, but I think it does better if I press it with my iron. Okay. Then I'm going to turn it over and make sure, yeah. And like I said, it's not a huge deal as far as showing that it's there, because this one's a dark fabric and it's not real visible. So to make your strap, we're going to fold it in half first, which this takes a little bit to do it this way, but if I had a well, I think I have a bias tape. Well, I'm going to do it this way because not everyone has one of those little bias tape tools. It can actually make this part go a lot faster. So you're just going to fold it down the middle. I need to find a better place to put my iron because it's in the way. Okay, but you're going to just get it flat, just perfectly folded down the middle first. And then we'll fold it again. And this, if you watched when I did the, oh, what was it that we did? Oh, it was the lanyard. I got off a little bit on that. Ooh, the fabric's kind of hot. Let's see here. I got it crooked. I don't like that. Well, I guess it's not that bad. But this is how we did the lanyard. So if you've done a lanyard, you can do a strap. This particular strap, because it's essentially the same thing. It's actually exactly the same thing. Okay, so there we go. And now you're going to fold it inwards. You're going to fold to the crease on this side and the other side. And if you have trouble doing them both at the same time, just fold one side in. You have to do more, and then, well, this way. Fold one side in and iron it, and then fold the other side in. You don't have to do them at the exact same time if it's too difficult. Here, I'll show you. Just kind of flatten it out. And then you can turn this side in. Sometimes that's a little bit easier than trying to do them both at the same time. I need to open the rest of it up because it wasn't wanting to fold inwards for me because it was still folded the other way. Okay, I'll just kind of continue. So you just want both edges all the way to the center, and they should line up and be perfectly folded together if you line them up with the fold on the inside. So here I'll just kind of show you. You tuck them in together, and then you just press them. Mine iron is so hot it doesn't take a whole lot of pressing to get it to hold into place. And then I got all these little threads from cutting it earlier. Oops, that part's not in all the way. If you can see one side peeking, like one edge sticking out further than the other, then you didn't get it folded all the way in. one edge didn't get folded in correctly. They should line up together. The fabric keeps fighting with me. And this is actually where I sewed the two pieces together. And see, it's not that visible. That's where the line is, where I sewed them together. So, like I said, whenever you do it this way, it's not real noticeable when you do it that way, so don't worry about it. Lining up the design to make sure that it all lines up together, because it's really not noticeable whenever it doesn't all line up. Alrighty, let's see here. Almost to the end. I was trying to get it all tucked in all the way to the end there. Okay. It's kind of awkward doing this at an angle. I hope I'm getting it straight. Maybe if I put my arms around the camera when I'm doing this, instead of to the side. Alright, so now that we have it folded and ironed down, what we're going to do is on this edge that is open, we're going to sew a straight line down that edge. If you want, if it's the type of fabric that's real noticeable that you are doing top stitching, if you want to top stitch on this side and the other side, you can do that for looks if you prefer it that way. You don't have to do it that way, but if you'd like to, you can. I'm not going to on this one. I'm just going to sew down the edge that's open instead of sewing down both, because you're not going to be able to see the top stitching real well on this because it's so dark, and with the black thread it's not going to be real noticeable anyway. So that's why I'm not going to do mine. Alright, so let's swap back over here. Always wants to lean forward. Alright, try to get all these wires out of the way so I can sew. Alright, so I'm going to get the end of my fabric here and make sure, and I like my needle all the way to the right whenever I'm doing this type of thing so I can get closer to the edge. So, because if I have it in the middle, it's further away. Oops, sorry. Let's try to do a better job with that. And I'm going to, I didn't want to be too close to the edge. I'm going to back stitch. Make sure that didn't get caught. Okay. Alright, so I wonder how well this is. I feel like this is still not great as far as seeing. Maybe that's better. Okay. Just keep it lined up with the edge of your sewing foot. I'm just keeping it straight. I'm not feeding it through because the machine's pulling it through for me. I'm just checking in the back to make sure that it's not running into anything that's going to get all kind of, it might get bunched up back in here, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm just letting it pull it forward and sew it. I'm getting close to the part where it got folded, so it's going to be a little more. Let's see. Alright, it's not getting bunched up too badly back there. Okay. Getting close. Okay. Almost to the end here. Hey, Pat's watching, and hey Myra, how are you doing? Alright, so this is the end of the strap, and I'm going to back up a little bit, get that reinforced. Alright, so we got the strap, and I'm going to cut off my ends. So now we're going to get to put together the bag, and we're going to be putting the straps inside of the bag when we're doing all of this. I'm trying to think how I'm going to lay this out where y'all can see it. Let's move this back over while I pin it all together for you. I wish I had more than one camera and I could switch cameras instead of having to move my entire camera over here. The whole setup, but that's okay. Alright, so there's my strap, and here's my pieces. Alright, so we get to put everything together. So this is my inside, and then we're going to pin those together. If this is the right side, looks the same on the red, but on the pattern it's going to be different. So this is my right side and this is my right side. So, and you kind of look at it, see how you want it to look. I want Chewbacca to be upright, so I'm going to turn, when I turn it down, that's the direction it's going to go. Unfortunately, on the back side of the bag, he's going to be going the other direction. I didn't really think about that whenever I was cutting it out. But that's the back of the bag. The cool thing is, when the flap goes over, that'll be right side up. So that all works in the long run. So, because this one's a multi-directional fabric, so not a big deal. So let me get my pins. We're going to pin them together, and we're going to sew just the edges of it. I'm going to move that over to the side, because you can kind of tell a little bit better that this is, I guess I could make this a little bit easier to see instead of being so far away. Yeah, there we go. So you just want to pin it together, just the edges here, and keep them nice and straight. And I always pin from the sides so they're a little bit easier. If you pin them up and down, you're more likely to get yourself with the pin when you're pulling them out as you sew. It works better if you pin them from the outer edges. And most quilters, whenever I was learning to sew, a friend of mine, she's a quilter, and she told me that, and so I was like, oh. And then I've noticed a lot of videos that I've watched, that's the way a lot of them tend to pin their fabric. And it does, I noticed whenever I pinned it the other direction, I did tend to get poked by the pins pretty often whenever I was pulling them out as I was sewing. And you definitely want to pull them out as you're sewing, because if you don't, if your needle happens to hit the pin, it's going to break, and you're going to break your needle. or if it doesn't break, it's going to dull your needle, and you don't want that to happen. So just always pull them out before it goes, that part goes under your needle when you're sewing. Okay, so we're going to make sure that this one's lined up too. And if you have a little, what are those, roller brushes to get the lint and stuff off of it, that's a good idea. I'm trying to make sure it's lined up the best way possible. And I'm just doing the same thing on this one. I'm pinning it all the way around. I like to do my corners first sometimes because, I don't know, once I know that I got those nice and neat, I go and do the other stuff. But you can do it however you want to, as long as the fabric stays straight. Whoops, I just hit my camera. That's the problem with having the camera so close to the work while I'm doing this. I'm going to hit it with my hands. Okay. Yeah. You just want to make sure that you got all of your edges pinned. I'm going to move that over there to the sewing machine. Once we get this part sewn, then we'll actually be able to pin all the pieces together. And then I'll show you how to do, I guess I need to keep that out to do the boxed corner that I want to do on this bag. Because I've done several just tote bags before. And I really, the ones that I've done, I really loved how they had boxed corners on it. It just has a nicer look to it to me. There we go. Not so close to the sewing machine though. Alright, so I guess I should be, I've only made this project one time, but I've made bags several times, but I'm pretty sure putting the right sides together, sew around the 3 edges, yes. Okay, and then we'll be, yep, okay, I'm remembering correctly. I don't want to, and that's always very important, I have found, to make sure that you double check your pattern and directions. I mean, the directions, not your pattern, but double checking your directions as you go to make sure that you're doing it correctly. I've made some assumptions and thought that I knew what I was doing, and it was the first time I had done the project before, and I went and did it wrong because I read the directions wrong, and because the fabric was already cut, I couldn't fix it. So you got to be really careful about that. So we're just going to sew around the edges here. I want to make sure this is centered. Like I said, I'm always real paranoid about this, making sure everything's centered where y'all can see it. Make sure we get that out of there. Okay, and then we're going to pivot. I think I'd like to get one stitch closer to the edge. There we go. And always make sure your needle is in the fabric whenever you're turning it, because that will keep everything straight. Because if you don't, you might get out of line, and you don't want that to happen. And it's handy to have a place for your pins nearby. your sewing machine as you're sewing. Let me show you real quick what I use. This is a magnetic one, and it's awesome. You can just throw your pins in and it sticks to them. You can also, if you want to go with the old-fashioned kind, I like the purple one, you can use these too. I don't mind using this whenever I'm pulling the pins out, but whenever I'm out of to pin something, but whenever I'm pulling my pins out of the stuff as I'm sewing, I like to use this to put it on because it's so much easier than having to look to pin it into the other thing. And at the library, we don't have the magnetic ones. We just have some little tiny paper plates that we throw the pins in, but the only bad thing about having the little paper plates is that they're not magnetic, so sometimes they roll out, and that's not good. You don't want to have them in the floor somewhere, especially if you have kids or pets. That's just not something you want to happen. So it's nice to have the magnetic ones. And as you notice, I manually backed up my stitches whenever I was doing that, just to have a little more control over it because I was so close to the edge. And if you do it that way manually, where you're turning your turn wheel on the side, that's this over here, always turn it towards you. Never turn it away because you're going to get a tangle in the bobbin area if you do that. Alright, so I've gotten that one done, and I'm going to cut my threads real quick. And it's nice to have a little pair of scissors like this nearby. You can use your big scissors too, but I find this pair a little bit handier because they're small and I can leave them laying around my machine. They don't take up as much space because they're good for just snipping little pieces. I've found quite a few of my neat little accessories at Tuesday Morning for a really good price before, so it's one of my favorite places to go shopping. Alright, because they have all kinds of craft stuff too. I'm not worrying about using the black black thread on the red fabric because this is the sewing I'm doing right now is not going to show. It's going to be on the inside. So that's why I'm not coordinating my thread to my fabric. Because it can be a little bit of a pain to have to switch your thread while you're sewing. My hand got kind of close. You got to watch that. I always tell people whenever they're in my classes, don't put your hand up into here. Oh, my camera got turned. Oh gosh. That's terrible. Don't put your hand under there because this piece will hit it. Or if you get your hand too close in there, you'll sew your finger. That's not good. You don't want to do that. So be careful. Try to keep your hand to the front here and this hand on this side. Don't do what I was doing just then. Because it's not a good idea. You want to be safe when you're sewing. You don't want to get hurt. And that's another reason to get to become comfortable with your machine, where you don't sew really fast and let it get away from you, because if you do, then you're more likely to get hurt. Oh, my fabric didn't quite. It kind of shifted on me a little bit. Well, I'm not real concerned because I'm going to do a box corner on here anyway, so it's not going to really show. Okay. And I'm getting really close to the edge there, so I'm going to manually do this. Alright. So there we go. So I got that sewn. And Oops, I'm backing into some stuff I didn't mean to back into. Alright, so I'm going to just snip off my little threads here. And then we're going to be putting everything together to sew it. But since the pattern I gave you is not going to have this one part, this box corner thing I'm going to do. Let's see. We'll need to do that first. And if any of you, I think Pat, yeah, if she's still here, she's seen how to do box corners because she actually did the class with me on how to do the little tote bags that we did. But I'm going to have to measure all this out, and probably if I iron it, it's going to be easier. So I hate to move back over there to the iron again, but I'm going to do it because you want to get it as straight as possible. And this ironing it is the best way to make sure everything's nice and flat and straight where you can see everything. Make sure it's all lined up the way it's supposed to be. Okay. So we're going to line up the, I'll just show you. That's the bottom of the bag, and this is the sides. And there's my flap. But we're going to pull the corner apart, if it will allow me to do it again. And you want to line up this with this one. Now, my fabric got really close. It kind of shifted whenever I was sewing. But you want those, you can kind of feel it, and if you need it to actually, alright, you can fold them all to one side too, that also works. But you want to keep it pulled apart, and you want to make sure that both of the seams are laying on top of each other. You're going to have to feel it to make sure. And then sometimes ironing it helps, or pressing it, once you get it lined up and you can feel it lined up. You just have to do the end of it. And I think mine was not on, or it's not on, but it's not hot right now. But we're gonna, I want to have, let's see, the straps I'm putting on it, I want to double check the measurements, but it should be about 1 inch. Yep, it's a little slightly more, but it's about 1 inch. So I want to box it by about 1 inch. So I'm going to do, I think that's going to be a little too small. It's not going to, well, it might work. It's going to be really small. But what you're going to do is, to get a straight edge, is I'm lining up the line of the seam here, and then also, see how this has diagonal lines? I'm also lining it up with that. And I'm going to draw across here, and then I'm also going to pin it into place. So maybe my iron is heated up, so it will hold it in place a little bit better. There we go. So it's really hot because it just pressed it. So I'm just pinning it on this end. Usually if you're doing a bigger box corner than this, which usually I do a bigger one, this is a mini bag, so we don't need a very big one. I would pin both sides because this might be bigger than that, but that's okay. We're not going to do that with this one. Okay, so then we have to do the same thing to the other corner. We'll also have to do it to the printed fabric too. So you want your seams to lay on top of each other and keep them very, very flat. Okay, and then we'll take, steaming up my plastic measuring thing here. Okay, So I'm lining it up again. And see, you can see that little diagonal, it's lined up with that, and it's also lined up with my seam there. Okay. This is like a mini box corners. Alright. I don't think I've ever done one with this small corner on it before. I guess this would be a good practice for us doing a small bag first. Trying that out. But just line up your seams. Make sure they're flat on top of each other. And this is my other corner. Oops, let's iron it. Just briefly there. Oh! I barely had it up there, so it fell off pretty easy. Okay. Let's move that because... Okay, so I'm measuring 1 inch, and it's 1 inch from here to here that I'm measuring it. And it's a little harder to... Okay, yeah, definitely want everything to line up. You can make a bunch of different bags this way. Different sized bags, you know. Okay. One more corner, and then we'll have them all done. Oh, hey Amy, and hey Terry. I wasn't paying attention at first that you guys had popped on there. Alright, so... Alrighty. And I'll say it again, if you stay... I said this at the very beginning, so I know some of y'all probably didn't know it if you haven't watched my programs this summer. We are doing giveaways for Summer Reading Club. Next week will be the last one that will be a giveaway, but at the end of the program, whoever's still watching, I will ask for you to tell me your name, and I'll put your name down, and then I'll do a drawing at the end, and it will be for a Michaels gift card, because that's the gift card we have left. We had started out with the beginning of the summer. We started out with a Hobby Lobby gift card and some Walmart gift cards, and I think Joann's, yeah, because Joann's was the one that was taken last week from the drawing. So, alright, so we're drawing this on there. And I think that should be the last line I have to draw. Okay. There we go. And we're just going to sew the line. And then we're going to cut our little corners off. And then we will put the bag together and sew it together. Alright, so I'm going to move back over here. Oof. I hate having to move all of this back and forth every time. It seems like it's a lot of moving around for you guys. And all these cords I have to deal with each time. Alright. Ow. That didn't really hurt though. I didn't bump it that hard. Okay. So there's my line that I'm going to sew over. So you want to keep it nice and flat. And I'm going to move my needle to the middle. So it'll be a little bit easier for me to see because it's dark fabric. There we go, because you want, and I'm going to lower it, and it's not quite hitting where the blue is going to be, so there we go. I want to make sure that you get it lined up, and I'm going to move it forward just a little bit to get it started. And then I'm going to back up. Oops. Oh well. It'll be okay. And I'm going to back up. Ooh. Kind of got away from me. Alright. And everything's sewed down good, so I'm going to cut that off. And I really didn't have to take the needle out while I was doing that. As long as it's way off to the side, out of the way, and you're not gonna get yourself, as far as poking, you're not get poked by it. Then this one's in the way. The sewing foot was sitting on top of it, so I'm gonna move it out of the way. Okay. I'm going to back up slowly. I hate that it went past that far. Okay. And then back up. This is such a small area. Or a short, area to sew over, that it's done pretty quickly. You always want to move your thread back to the back of your machine. Don't pull it to the front, because it can become unthreaded when you do that. And you don't want to sew with it in the front, because that'll mess things up too. Oops. I'll move it over just a tad. Move it forward one before I go back. Alright, there's that one. Oh, now, did I take my needle? Yeah, I did take the needle out of the other one. Alright, so one more. And this is an added step that I added. Oh, my needle became unthreaded. It looks like, nope, it just is not in the right place. It came out from between the sewing foot. That's another reason for it not to come forward, because it will come loose. Let's see. I want to make sure it's nice and lined up. Okay. One more. Yeah. Alright. So there's that. So now I'm going to be putting everything together to sew it together. But first, here, let's get some more light. That didn't really help. Oh well. So now we got to get rid of all of our threads. Let's see, I'm going to move our trash can right underneath, so it'll be a little bit easier, so it won't be off to the side. So let's just get these little threads off, and then I'll show you how to cut the corners. It's pretty easy. It's more noticeable if you do a bigger box corner than what we're doing, but since this is such a small project, I'm making it kind of small. Okay, and to cut the corners, I'm going to use my actual fabric scissors. And so what you're going to do is you're going to cut across and leave about that much. So that's what your corner is going to look like once you cut it. Don't want to cut too close, but you want to leave enough fabric there, about 1/4 of an inch at least. And we're doing it to both of them. Let's see, there's my line. I couldn't see it real well. Oops. Okay. Alright, so now we've got those, and I'm going to grab my strap here. Oops. And now we get to put it together. What we're going to do, let's see, what's the best way? Because we want to make sure that our strap is going in the right direction. Because we're going to lay our strap inside of here. I think I'm not going to worry about, there's one little thing different I was going to do, but I think it's going to be too much trouble, so I'm not going to do it this time, because I don't think these straps are going to be that big of a deal. Okay, so I'm lining up my straps. See, there's my You can barely see it. There's my top stitch on both of them. So I'm making sure those are lined up and that my strap is nice and flat like that, because we want to put it inside of our bag that way. So I want to make sure that this is going to get pinned in the right places on the inside of my bag. Let's see, these directions are in the way. And this stuff is too. That's how that's how I'm going to do the drawing. Okay, and I probably messed up my strap. Let me make sure that I kept it straight, because you want to make sure that it's nice and going the right direction. Okay, the way that you want it to lay inside of your bag. Because this is the right side, and you're going to turn this around where the right side of it is going to go inside of the bag, but your straps are going to go inside too. But I'm going to do my straps first because I want to make sure that everything is lined up. This is making me a little paranoid, because I'm laying it nice and flat like that, where it's all laying flat. Alright, so I want it to go on either side. Maybe if I do it from this side. Okay, so I want it to go on either side like this. So, oh yeah, shoot, that's why I was doing it the other direction, because it's going inside of the bag. Okay, so I want it to go inside of my bag like so. So it's going to stick out a little bit. Let's see. So this is the top flap, and this is the inside. I don't want that to move right now, so I'm going to temporarily pin it in place. I'm going to have to repin it in a second, but I'm trying to keep this straight. And then that's my top stitch on that side, and this is my top stitch on that side. I haven't moved it around. Let's see. And so I'm also putting the top stitch facing that direction on the other edge. And I'm putting it right next to the seam. I know this seems a little weird right now, the way I'm doing this. Okay, so now that I have it, I'm going to double check myself again and make sure that it's going to fall inside my bag that way with the seams, because this is the seams on this side, and when I get to the very end, my strap's going to fall straight the way I want it to fall. So okay, so now I know that I've got them pinned the way I want them, so now I can bunch it up and put it inside of my bag, because that's where it's going to have to be. And I know I have them pinned the direction that I want them to be pinned. So now I can put this piece inside, but it's got to be turned around, because you're going to turn it where the right sides are facing the other fabric. And see, this is what the box corner ends up looking like whenever you turn it right side out. Has a little box. Okay, so this is the flap, and then so I need to turn this so it is lay in the same direction. Okay, so there's the flap of this one and the flap of this one. That's the right side, and this is the right side. So these right sides are going to get lined up together inside of the bag. If you've never put a bag together before, this is kind of confusing. Well, I guess it could be a little more than kind of, but because you're like, well, how's this all going to work? Because you're going to sew the insides of this bag and then turn it right side out is what's going to happen. So I'm just trying to make sure that I have it pushed in there all the way. I know that strap is in there, so it's kind of going to cause a little bit of a problem with me keeping it all straight. And I'm going to move things because I want to make sure that you can see how I'm doing this. Okay, ooh, and maybe go up a little bit. Alright, so here's my pins. We're going to leave an opening at the top of the bag. And my way of knowing when to start and stop on my sewing is I pin it with different colored pins. I use these white and yellow pins, and the rest of the pins I'll be using is purple. So you want to make sure, actually I think I'm going to have to pin this area first and get it pushed down in there before I can get that to line up correctly. Typically you need to line up your seams first. So I want to look inside my bag, and that's my seam right there, and this is my seam. You can see the seam better on the red one, but you are wanting to line those seams up together the best way that you can, and then you're going to straighten out your fabric and make sure that your little strap is poking out the top. You want at least about 1/2 inch of it. So I'm going to pin that first and make sure I pin it all the way because I want my strap to stay straight. So I'm pinning that first, and then you're going to go around and line up both sides together. Make sure that they're lined up together and pin about 1 inch or so apart. And I want to make sure my seams are straight, so I'm going to come back over on my other corner to look at my seams and make sure that I've got them lined up together on this side too. Okay, and I got about 1/2 inch of the strap sticking out here too. And then I'm going to pin it again to make sure I go all the way through. And then I'm going to put another pin here because you want them all to be lined up. Okay, so now pinning the rest of it will be a little bit easier. So each edge of the flap needs to be pinned in place. So I'm going to get close to where the seam is because that's where it tends to shift. And you want to go all the way around, making sure that it's lined up all the way around. And I know I'm going to use the different colored pins on that side, so I'm going to, on the top edge, so I'm going to come back around to my other seam and pin it. And you're keeping this fabric as straight and flat as possible while you're doing this. Okay, so this is the top of my flap where I'm going to be leaving it open. So I'm going to pin it where I want to leave my opening. So that's where I want my opening to be. They usually say, I might have to shift these a little bit, you want your hand to be able to fit down in it. So make sure your hand can fit through the opening. I'll move that over a little bit. So this is what we end up with. And look at this and make sure mine did not quite line up there. So I'm probably going to have to repin that because you want it to be lined up and it's not. So I'm going to have to shift my fabric. I must not have done something right. Because they're exactly the same size, so there shouldn't be a gap like that. Alright, so now that's lined up better so I can repin the other. And you want it to stay nice and flat. Let's see, I guess that did okay. I'm gonna pin it again, because when you get around the edges there, it gets kind of tight. I know when I did the other one, it kind of... Okay. I might end up pinning this more than I did before. Alright, so we got the right sides facing each other. These are the wrong sides on the outside, and that's what we want. And we got our straps attached. So now we're going to sew this together. Okay, and that might be tilted too much. Alright. Okay, and then remember I pinned mine where I wanted to start and stop. So I'm also going to take this part off of my machine since I'm kind of going around. It makes it a little bit easier. I think, well, I want to be able to see the inside of it. Okay, so I'm going to start at this one and pull my pin out. And I'm going to try to move myself closer so I can see what I'm doing. And also move this a little bit closer, make sure it's centered. Okay. And a couple of back stitches. And go slow around the corners, the rounded corners, because those can be difficult. And if you notice that you're having trouble doing that, stop it and pivot your fabric ever so often, just to make sure you keep it lined up. Now always make sure that the needle is in the fabric when you move it. Okay. You want to keep it flat. Get that out of the way. Okay. And you want everything to lay as flat as possible. And you're going to have to move things around a little bit. And you want to come down to the seam area and see we're going to be turning here in just a moment. So I want to make sure, okay, that's where I want to pivot. And be sure to keep everything lined up as best as you can. Let's see, I don't know that I came down far enough. Let me try that again. I think I need to do one more stitch. Alright. I kind of moved there and didn't realize it. And this is where you're going to struggle a little bit trying to keep everything straight. But keep your foot lined up with the fabric. And I'll take that out. And I don't know, it just seems like my... Oops, that's becoming unpinned. So try to keep that straight and flat. Make sure that your fabric is staying lined up like it's supposed to. Okay, oops, there I go hitting the camera. I'm taking my needles out a lot, waiting till I get closer to them. because this is so bunched up together. I want everything to stay nice and straight. If it wasn't so small, it wouldn't be this hard to sew it. You'd have more wiggle room. I'm going to make sure I get sewn up there onto the strap before I take that out, because I don't want my strap shifting. And so, alright, I'm going to get to my seam. That's where my seam is. And I'm going to have to come over a little bit because in order to pivot to come up the other seam, and my pins are trying to come loose, I have to keep all of that nice and straight. So you're going to go forward at least 1/4 of an inch like that, and then pivot to see if it's going to line up with your next edge. If it doesn't seem like it, then you need to go forward a little, up a little bit more, but I think I'm okay. Okay, so it's kind of shifting around here. We're almost to the top of the bag. Okay. Oops, my pins are trying to come out left and right here. Alright, so I'm gonna, oops, sorry. I wanted to shift this a little bit. And one more, because I'm coming around my other rounded corner. Alright, and I came to my white needle. That's where my stopping point is, so I can turn it right side out. So I'm going to sew up to that point and then do some back stitching. And a little bit more. Alright, so we got that. I'm going to take it off of the machine. Oops. We'll put it back on again here in a minute. But we are going to turn it right side out after I cut these threads off. We're almost done. Okay, so now where I left the opening, we're going to pull everything out. And it's easier if you just get a hold of those straps that are in there to pull some of it out first, and then you're probably going to pull the red first before you pull the pattern, because that's the inside. It's going to come out first before the outside of the bag. Or I guess that sounded funny. Alright, so and if you have anything to straighten it out, like to poke out your corners, my fingers will probably work just fine, because we did the box corners instead of just pointed corners. So I'm just pushing those out. And then you have to push your lining back in to the actual bag, because it's kind of all over the place right now. So we're going to have to push that into the bag, but not the flap part. Alright. You want it all to kind of line up. So, and it probably would help if I went and pressed this real quick before we did our top stitching. There's the straps, the really, really long straps that I did. And then our not corners, but our rounded corners. You can usually flatten it out with your fingers. And we're just going to do a top stitch on it to finish it off. But like I said, it's going to probably make it easier if we do... Oh, we got lots of little threads from the fabric there. Trying to stick through. Oop, darn. Sorry. I keep doing that. Alright. And probably what you're going to have the most trouble with is well, there's more threads sticking out. This red fabric had lots of pieces. But your corners are going to be the hardest part to keep straight. It's going to bunch up a little bit the way that she designed it. Probably could have cut the fabric a little bit in the corners to make that work better. But I'm going to press it real quick and then we'll do a top stitch. Whew. This took a little bit longer. Oh, it's going to fall over. Let's turn it that way so it shouldn't be top heavy that way. Alright, and then also pressing it is going to make that little opening be less noticeable and be easier to sew over to flatten it. Let's see. Let's stick all the little threads inside. I'm trying to... You want to work all your corners out too. Might have to do that a little bit more. But you want that to be nice and flat to the edge there. And I'm just going to press it. And it's going to take a minute. I forgot. Haven't used my iron in a few moments, so now it's thinking. It's slowly heating up. And there's more threads. Let me cut some more of those off. Boy, this fabric likes to have little pieces everywhere. Okay. And then I need to do the inside. The straps are awful long, so they tend to get in the way. Let's see. Keep your... Mine steams up really good, so keep your fingers away from the seam. Or the steam. Okay. So now I've got that little... We're just going to sew all the way around the edges, and that'll be it. Alright, I bet y'all are ready. I'm ready to be done too. Whew. I'll tell you what. To the back. And if you think the stitching will be no more noticeable if you start here, then start somewhere on the inside of the bag for the top stitch. Wherever you think it'd be less noticeable. And you can actually do it from this side too. I think that's what I'm not real worried about how it's going to show. So I'm just going to start on top. Because it's black thread and it'll have some black thread on the inside, but that's okay. Or showing. If I really wanted to make it neat looking, I could switch to red thread. That way it would show on the outside, and that would be kind of nice. honestly, I don't know if I want to come all the way around like that. Yeah, I'm not going to do it. Well, it's going to, I think on my other bag I did it this way too. I did it on the top. I don't think, because that's going to make the seam kind of bunched up if you do it this way. I'm going to lift it up and see if it will work. Okay. I guess it'll be alright. I'm going to walk it forward. The straps were trying to get in the way. You want to move those to that side. Okay, so now I'm getting close to this part. Walk it forward, and then I'm going to turn it this way and pull it straight. Actually, I'm going to walk it a little bit more. I might have to do a lot of shifting there. There we go. Okay, I'm almost all the way around again. And there's my beginning stitches, so I'll just back up a little bit. Okay, that is it. The bag is done. Alright. Yay, it's done. So, I'm going to cut. It's going to be more noticeable at the top here. As long as you got your hole closed up, you're good. So that's the top of the bag. And I like the smaller straps a lot better because this will hang over it better. I still don't like the design a whole lot because of the straps being on the front of there. So when the flap goes over, it's kind of bunched up. But it works better with the smaller straps than it did with the bigger ones. Alright, so there's the bag. It's done. So I just need everybody to say, I'm here, and your name will pop up whenever you say that, and then I'm going to write your name down, and then we'll do a drawing for a prize, and it will be the Michael's gift card, right? Michael's, yeah, because the other person took the Joanne one. So let me get a pen and some paper. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright. Alright, Myra's here. And it looks like there's supposed to be 3 more people watching. So please speak up if you're here and say I'm here so I can get your name down for the drawing. And then I'll roll the dice to see who wins. And while I'm waiting for people to say I'm here, I'm going to show you what we're going to do next week. I just painted this. So that's, oh, alright, Marion's here. Alright, but we're going to be painting next week. And that's what we're going to be painting. It's with a paintbrush and some Q-tips. It's a wisteria tree. Yeah. So, alright. So, Looks like there's supposed to be 4 people here, so if anyone else wants to get in the drawing to win a gift card from Michael's, say I'm here, or... Okay, yeah, I got you, Marion. I got you. So I'll give a few more moments for that, and let's see, I think that's... I'm not real sure about next month. Oh, my little puppy dog, I swear. She has to come here. She has to always be at the middle of everything. Don't you, Zoe? Yep, you always have to... Oh, you don't want to smell my iron? That's going to burn your little nose. Little booger butt. Okay. Well, I guess I'm not getting anyone else saying that they're here. So, I'm going to roll the dice. We only got 2 people here, so... The smallest dice I have is one that has a 4 on there, so hopefully I won't roll a 3, a 3 or a 4. So, well, I can't really throw it with you up there. Here, I'll do it over here. Oh, I got a 4. There's not 4 people. Oh, I got a 2. All right, so Marion, you are the winner this week. You will be getting the Michael's gift card, and it's for $15. So you can come by the library and through our curbside pickup and pick it up. Starting tomorrow, you can come by and pick it up and just tell them that you won a gift card from the Crafting with Opal program. Let's see here. So you won the $15 Michael's gift card. Write that down. So congratulations, Marion. Are you excited? I wonder if it's breaking up for you, because last time you were watching it, your connection was not real great and it kept breaking up. Alright, well, hopefully I'll send you a message too that you won, and let you know that you can pick it up at any time. Alrighty, that's this program, and I wish I had the picture with me. Saturday, I'm going to do a special painting program. It's going to be a bag that you're going to paint. Oops. And I still have supplies for that if you want to sign up. All right. She saw that she won. Great. It's a canvas bag, and I took it to work, so I don't have it here, but we're going to be doing another Q-tip type painting thing, and it's going to be lilacs. So, if I run out of bags for that, we could always give you a canvas, and you could paint it on a canvas if you want, because I've got canvases too. So, all right. Oops, I need to switch. Forgot about switching it back around to me. So, that's all for tonight. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.